I'll stick to 20 minutes so that, we will sort of, good morning to you all. I see one kid there, Navneet, and Naga. Yes, and Mai.
Praniti.
Okay, hello folks. So good morning to you all. So I will jump into this topic, which is I think it's sort of is important to each one of us as a kid, right? Growing up, the question is how to be a leader, right? So that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. Really, telling you 3 simple stories. I think each story is powerful in its own way. Communicates the essential message as to be how to be a good leader, right? So my sincere gratitude to Samvedangaru and the Dhruva Jnanam team for making this possible. Let's see.
ఒక రిక్వెస్ట్ అండి, మీరు కొంచెం గట్టిగా మాట్లాడితే మనకి రికార్డింగ్ లో క్లారిటీ వస్తుంది మా ఆడియోకి.
తప్పకుండా అదే తప్పకుండా. నేను ఇంగ్లీష్ లో మాట్లాడుతున్నాను, అదేం లేదు, బికాజ్ ఐ డి నాట్ నో ఎవరు. సో ఏ భాషనే పర్వాలేదు మనకు, ఉభయ భాషలో.
No problem. Let it be in English.
So basically, the idea is that, look, what is really important is a growth mindset, right? So even Silicon Valley CEOs talk about growth mindset. That is really the most enduring thing one can develop, right? And our Sanatana Dharma has already provided the framework for it, which is bhakti and shraddha. So in the next 20 minutes, I'm really going to basically assert the following idea, that all that you need to do to cultivate a growth mindset is have bhakti and have shraddha, right? So bhakti is really about devotion, a strong prayer. Shraddha is really about focus and discipline, and of course rooted in dharma, right? So that is exactly what my next slide is, which is success is not really in our hands. All that we can do is cultivate a growth mindset, right? So and this is exactly the philosophy, not just behind some of the top CEOs in Silicon Valley, but also some of the top academics around the world, as to how to develop a young mind. And the young mind is really about developing a mind with a growth mindset. And all that you need to then do to cultivate a growth mindset is to develop a firm bhakti and shraddha, right? Well, so let me tell you 3 stories. I think that's the best way to explain this. So one story actually comes from from our own Bharat, for a little girl in a village. The other one actually takes us back 5,000 plus years in time. And the third story actually is set in the 18th century. Each one of these stories speak to the main idea that what really is important is to cultivate a growth mindset. That is through bhakti and shraddha, right? So am I clear so far? Am I making sense? Okay.
Yes.
So this is so there was this little village once upon a time where unfortunately the rains utterly failed, and you can see how the grounds became so parched, and the drought unfortunately struck. The villagers summoned a meeting, wondering how to. They were brainstorming to figure out a possible solution. So they consulted the village head, who was a pious man, and the instruction was to visit the temple at the edge of the town and offer prayers, sincere prayers to the Lord, and appease God. And then everyone started their journey. So they were getting ready to go to the temple accordingly. So all the women folk, all the men folk, they were all dressed up. They were going to the temple. The procession started. Young kids also joined the procession. In fact, there was a buffalo too that joined the procession. Probably it was a vehicle, so they were using that as a vehicle to get there. But more interestingly, there was a little girl that joined that procession too. And what was interesting was that she was very pious. She was dressed, with an umbrella in her hand. And And so all made fun of her. Why are you carrying an umbrella? Really? I mean, here is a land where you haven't received rains. Rains have failed for many sessions, many seasons, and now you're even dressed with an umbrella. So they all made fun of her. But nevertheless, their walk started. The whole troop moved. The procession moved to that edge to the temple at the edge of the town. There were very interesting sights on the way. They all reached the temple. And then the prayers were offered, and the gods were seemingly appeased. That's what the villagers thought. And then they started trekking back, because suddenly it became all dark. Clouds thundered in the skies, and it started raining and then pouring. But then it started raining, no doubt, but only on one person, right? It was only raining on the person who was actually carrying the umbrella. And remember, the person who was carrying the umbrella was that little girl, really, at the right of the screen there, right? She was the only one. So the rains, no doubt, fell. The gods were appeased, but seemingly it only fell on one person. And everybody was stuck in awe and wonder as to what was revealing before their eyes. So the question is, why only on that girl? Why was she so special, right? So the answer is yes. The little girl indeed worked a miracle. Her prayer was so strong that that she had faith in her prayer, and which is why she carried an umbrella with her, right? And hence that faith in her faith was answered promptly by the gods, and everyone else benefited with the rain, right? So everyone then realized how special she was, right? So she was special really because of two qualities. Again, the Shraddha and Bhakti. So Shraddha is the determination to go and seek the blessings of the Lord. She was disciplined enough to get up and get up that morning and walk with an umbrella. So that was a Shraddha. But Bhakti too, that she knew that God was going to answer the prayers, which is why she carried the umbrella. Okay, so which is why she had that growth mindset that things will happen, right? Things will happen, and verily her prayers was answered, right? So that is my first story. I just want to make sure if everybody is with me. Let me see. I'm using this for the first time. I want to make sure. So that is my first story. So does it make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this story actually is very much in the rhetoric. So what is very much in the customs and the culture of our ancient land, and this is a story that is from ground up. So people have passed it on across generations, and similar versions of these stories happen all the time. Okay, so really remember that little girl. We'll come back to her again in a few minutes. Okay. The second story, so I want parents to also pay attention a little bit, because some of it you can process it better and pass it on to your kids. The story is taken from Bhagavatam, Dwapara Yuga, which is more than 5,000 years ago. Okay. So here was a celestial being, angel, right? This particular celestial being was a Gandharva. Gandharva, as you know, worship gods with music. And this particular Gandharva's name was Ghantakarna, right? So as you can see on the left of the screen, he actually is wearing bells. So bells for his ears. So Ghanta is the bell, the Karna is the ears, right? So we'll explain why that is the case. So he was a celestial being, Gandharva. Okay. So are you hearing me? Can you hear me all well? You're all good?
Yes.
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 So this celestial being, Ghantakarna, he served his master. His master his name was Kubera. The picture on the top right. So he's Kubera. He's the lord of the wealth. And Kubera is a great ardent devotee of Lord Shiva. So the bottom picture shows how Kubera is worshipping Lord Shiva. He's an ardent devotee of Lord Shiva. But the problem was that he was. It turns out that Ghantakarna was also a great devotee of Shiva. So his master Kubera got jealous. Master got jealous. Why? Because his servant Ghantakarna was actually a greater devotee. Okay, so far so good. So then not only he gets jealous of his servant, which is Ghantakarna, and then he curses. So the master Kubera curses the servant Ghantakarna of an incurable skin disease.
అందరూ కాస్త మ్యూట్ లో ఉండరా?
Yes. So thank you. So the master Kubera curses the servant Ghantakarna of an incurable skin disease. So he's disfigured now, and not only he's sadly disfigured, but that people cannot even accost him, cannot approach him, for the reasons mentioned there, right? So then Ghantakarna is determined and unshaken in his faith. Well, how sad that a great celestial being now is transformed into a disfigured person, and nobody even can see him because he's smelly and stinky. But then Ghantakarna doesn't give up. So he is lost in the penance of the Lord Shiva. And verily the Lord manifests. The Lord appears before him and gives him a message. The message is that don't give up faith. You are in the right direction, but a greater truth will come and deliver you one day, right? That's what Lord Shiva assures him. Okay. So the Ghantakarna continues to meditate so he was actually in the Himalayas, in the lofty mountains of the Himalayas, as you can see, where the lords amble on the holy grounds, and where Kailasha is the abode of the Lord himself on this earth. And so the Ghantakarna is lost in trance and meditation over many hundreds of years, and then comes Dwapara Yuga. Dwapara Yuga is roughly about, say, 7,000, 8,000 years ago. And then Lord Krishna ambles into the holy grounds of Himalayas, and he was going to worship Lord Shiva there. He was actually looking for a path to Kailasha, seemingly. But then his gaze falls upon this person, Ghantakarna, and then he accosts him and he asks him, who are you? What is your story? And thereupon Ghantakarna reveals his story. But then he says promptly, I know you are looking for the Lord Shiva and looking for Kailash. I can put you on the right path. I can show you the direction from here. But the thing is, Ghantakarna does not know much about the Lord Krishna. He does not know who he is, because all the time he was lost in meditation of the Lord Shiva. Then he asked Krishna, Lord Krishna, look, I'm giving you this favor. I mean, that is, I'm showing you the path to Kailash. What can you give me in return? Well, Krishna says, I can give you whatever you want. Well, then what he says is, can you give me a new body? Because, look, my old body is really stinky and disfigured. I've been suffering this curse of Kubera for millennia, really, for thousands of years. Can you please help me? Lord Krishna immediately obliges. He with his Venu, we call that in Telugu Pillana Grovi, Venu. He touches Lord. He creates a new body with the touch of his Venu, right? So Lord Krishna, as you can see there, so there's an old body lying on the ground in the figure. That old body is that of the old Ghantakarna. That is it's in a sorry state. So Lord Krishna cannot repair it, seemingly. So he creates a new body right away, right? That you can see in front. So that's why Lord Krishna is a Yogeshwareshwara, right? So he is the Lord of the Lords, and which is why he can create another body when a first body already exists. Which is why all the gods who have come to witness this holy spectacle from the heavens shower celestial flowers, right? And the heavenly music blows through the skies to bless this event, as it were. And when that happens, then the second touch of the flute, Lord Krishna transfers the the soul from the old body to the new body, right? And Gantakarna wakes up in the new body. And lo and behold, Gantakarna is now in this beautiful resplendent body with divine, with all the divinity, bestowed upon him and radiating out of him. And again, God showered the celestial flowers again, right? So there is God, there is Gantakarna who is redeemed from the curse, thanks to Lord Krishna. Okay, so remember what my main message is. Main message is about how to develop a positive growth mindset, right? So that's what I'm getting there. So Gantakarna is now redeemed, but then Lord Krishna asks, okay, so I have done this favor to you. What will you give me? Well, Gantakarna doesn't even bat his eyelids for a minute. He immediately turns around, surrenders his whole body to the Lord. And the Lord is in his tears. Lord is very pleased. So why? Because Gantakarna surrenders his past. So parents can get this message, across to the kids. So Gantakarna has actually surrendered his past by giving up his whole body to the Lord. And once one surrenders his past to the Lord, then one is uplifted, right? So here Gantakarna is uplifted. And the Lord here, who is the Guru, Lord Vande Jagat Guru. So Krishna is the Lord Jagat Guru. He reacts by destroying his past. So I'll tell you a little more clearly what I meant. So what happens is, then soon after that, I said, remember that Lord Krishna accepted his the past that Gantakarna has just surrendered. So he accepts that past, and then Gantakarna is uplifted. How? Well, the Gantakarna so far was just a celestial being. He was just a Gandharva, right? But now, because then he becomes immersed in the tapas of Lord Shiva again. But because of the blessings of Lord Krishna, he becomes elevated. Well, how does he become elevated? How does an angel get elevated? Well, then he becomes a god himself. So Gantakarna, he becomes a mantra sharira, which means his form is only now mantra, right? So right now, so in our culture back in Bharat, you have a mantra that is named after Gantakarna, and that mantra is very powerful mantra to ward off the diseases. Somebody who has become a mantra means someone has become a mantra sharira, a god himself, right? So Lord Krishna actually blessed Gantakarna to be uplifted from a celestial being, a Gandharva, to a god figure, right? So that is his grace. Okay. So the question then is, why was Gantakarna special? Why is his story so special? Well, honestly, Gantakarna worked a miracle, and this miracle is very interesting. That God manifested before him and said, "I'll give you a new body that's even better." Right? So that's a miracle. His prayer was very strong. He had a strong faith in his prayer, and that actually helped him. Right? And his prayer was readily answered. So the strength of his prayer. So he again had two essential qualities: the Shraddha, right? So sitting there and focusing and being determined in the service of the Lord Shiva. He was there. He was rooted in Dharma. He did not rebel against Kubera and said, "You did me a dharma." He never said that. He was rooted. He was focused, and his eventual bhakti, right, to the Lord's redeemed him. So that is why he had a growth mindset. A growth mindset transformed him from a celestial being into God himself, right? So this is a story that every child in our Sanatana culture should know, because this is a transformation of an angel into God himself, right? So that is Gantakarna. Did it make sense?
Yes.
So again, I request the parents. The slides will be shared to you all. So request the parents to probably explain this, with any clarity to the kids if needed. Okay, so that is the story of Gantakarna. Very good. So again, the growth mindset. So let's. This is the last story, really. And who else can one, talk in no less adoration than Queen Ahilyabai Holkar herself, right? So she lived in the 18th century, 70 years lifetime, 1725 to 1795. Queen Ahilyabai actually comes from a place in Madhya Pradesh. So again, just to help us put a finger on where that is. So this is the somewhat western part of India. In Madhya Pradesh, there is a fort called Maheshwar. And believe it or not, that town Maheshwar was originally called Mahishmati. Do you remember this word, Mahishmati? Do you remember this town, Mahishmati? Recently, it was all in the media.
Yeah.
Yes. So you know where that name was copied from, right? So Mahishmati, Bahubali, so the real Mahishmati was Maheshwar, right? And now we are talking about the divine story of the Queen of Maheshwar, right? So Maheshwar is a very, very old city. It even goes back to Ramayana 10,000 years ago. So it's a very, very old city. So Mahishmati was its original name, right? Which is why probably it was adapted in that movie. Okay. Okay. So now I told you where Maheshwar is and the glory of that place. I'm now going to talk about the glory of the queen who lived there. So there is this video here. Unfortunately, because of Zoom technical issues, I'm not able to show it. But once the slides will be passed on to you, diffused to you, you'll be able to see that. It's a beautiful, beautiful fort built by this queen. And the queen, as you see on the right side, she's the Queen Ahalyabai Holkar, right? So Mahesh. So that is where that is what the queen is, and she's the queen of Malwa, right? So now, so some quick snapshots here. My task here is to really show why she's such a noble person. I will leave you with two videos, short videos, which actually give you a little more splattering of her history, right? So starting from the left, so that is the stamp that captures the picture of Queen Ahilyabai. Then going from left to right, in the center there's a courtyard of her fort where she worshipped Tulsi there. And then to the right side, the top picture is where she actually held her daily meetings with the people. Even gave darshans to people. The bottom right picture is the temple she built there. Again, it's a part of the fort. That is 18th century fort. Okay, so she was born in a very simple family, a shepherd's family. Her mother had a big influence on her in instilling bhakti in her. But as it turns out, she was actually raised in royalty because a local king, a Holkar king, who was passing that way, saw when she was only 8 years old, a pious nature in her, a leadership quality that he took her with the permission of her parents and adopted her, and in fact made her son-in-law, his daughter-in-law. Okay, so she was actually made his daughter-in-law. That is a story in short. Now, the thing is, Queen Ahalyabai, she was very, very principled, very gentle, very compassionate, very great devotee of Lord Shiva. Okay? She led a very simple. That is her picture there with the Lord Shiva's the Shivalinga in her hands, and I'll tell you why that is so important. Okay, she was an ardent disciple of Lord Shiva. She led a very simple, humble life. She really shunned adulations. Though she ruled the kingdom for over 40 years, she never really put herself in the spotlight. That's why people don't know much about her. In fact, she is one of those very undervalued historical figures from India. And she was steeped in bhakti, right, and dharma and scriptures. Her leadership qualities were really threefold. She was a valorous soldier and a stateswoman. So she was a queen of Marathas. So as the story was that she grew up in a very humble background as a shepherd in a shepherd's family, as I told you. Then she was raised in royalty as a daughter-in-law of a great king. But then very soon the father-in-law saw the great qualities in her, and she inherited the the kingdom and the daily running of the country. And then she led many wars. All those stories are in the videos. Okay, so but the point was that the three leadership qualities was that she was not only a valorous soldier, she was a soldier and a stateswoman, very skillful, very respected. She ruled with a strong hand and brought law and order into the country. Okay. The second thing was she was an entrepreneur. She built a new capital, Maheshwar. I showed you the pictures. And then she was able to bring farmers from far out from Gujarat and Rajasthan, uh, gave them lands and asked them to cultivate because the rains were failing most of the time. So these farmers knew actually how to grow with limited supply of water. So she created a huge farming community. She created a huge textile industry. So she actually, the Maheshwari saris, silk saris are very well known. So she was the one who actually developed that with a foresight, right? And brought enormous wealth. So even as an entrepreneur, she was able to do that. And I'll tell you why all these are so important. The third one is the preservation of Hinduism, right? So for example, the right picture you see is that of Kashi Vishweshwara temple, right? Um, and everybody knows Kashi, but what people don't know is that um, when the Muslim kings destroyed the temple and the Sanctum Sanctorum, for a long time we did not have the linga there. So in fact, Ahilyabai was the one who actually uh, uh, revitalized the temple. She was the one who actually installed uh, and sanctified the temple with the linga. So the Shiva linga, you saw the picture before, she was carrying. So she was the one who actually found that linga in the Narmada river. Every day she would take a bath in the Narmada river in the morning, offer her prayers, and then the Lord blessed her with that linga. And that's a linga that you find today in the Kasi temple. So not only Kasi, but over 160 temples around India, all over India, from north to south, east to west. All these temples, so these were Gaya, Kashi, Ayodhya, Madhura, Kanchi, Badrinarayan, Rameshwar, Jagannathapuri. So those days, all these temples, remember all these temples were destroyed in the hands of Mughal kings, and they were in a dilapidated state. So she actually rebuilt those temples, reinstalled the Sancta Sanctorum, and supported these temples, supported the regular worship. So she actually can be singularly be responsible for perhaps revitalizing Hinduism at a time when India was at the mercy of these ruthless kings, Mughals, and the British were making deep inroads. So she was a great builder too. So she developed cities, she built forts and roads. In addition to temples, she built wells, goshalas, right, where cows. Uh, so she was very particularly paid a lot of attention to building these goshalas, tanks, and rest houses. And one important thing is she never touched the treasury. Okay, so it's not like a politician who's taking government's money. She did all this with her personal money, right? So that is very important. She's a great builder, no doubt. Imagine building 160 temples all over India and building so many acts, so many structures to serve the people. She did it with her money, with personal money, right? So that is why that shows also how scrupulous a leader she was. But this is something I never told you. I only told you what she did, why was she accomplished, but I never told you how many adversities she faced in her life, right? I never told you that purposely. So she lost her husband. She was married when she was I believe very young, 8 years or 10 years old, and then her husband died when she was 29. She lost her husband. She became a widow when she was 29 years old. She had a son. The son had a lot of medical issues, and the son died within a few years after that. So by 31, 32 years, she lost her son. And very soon she lost her father-in-law. So who was the father figure to her? The father-in-law was the king who actually trusted her. And thereupon, after a few years, she also lost her son-in-law in battles. Okay, so she lost her husband, father-in-law, son-in-law, and son all in the battles that were happening. Okay, but they were in the business of protecting the country, and to them it was a sacrifice that was offered. and she also had to put up with the son's ill health for a long time. And not only that, she was a woman in a man's world, right? And it was not easy. So there was a lot of enemies, politically, and her own family, and she had to really put them at bay. And she needed strategy to do that, trust the right people. Okay, so she really came through a lot of adversities when she all along that she faced all along. I'll tell you one little story and then close. Okay. So, and again, I sincerely urge you, all the kids, to watch these two videos that I have provided the links there. The reason I'm not able to show you is because of the Zoom technical issues. But let me tell you this little story. So, I titled that as Leadership in Distress. So, Peshwa uncle waged a battle to usurp her treasury. So, what happened was, so while she was a queen, so remember I said she ruled the kingdom for 30 to 40 years with an iron hand. And that with always, and she was a builder queen. She built temples and she revitalized the whole place. But the kings whom she reported to was Peshwas. So it was again, they were appointed by the Marathas, right? So they were ruling that place. But there was one particular king whom she reported to. He was very jealous of the fact that this queen has built enormous amount of wealth in her treasury, right? She used verily the treasuries only for the benefit of the people. She never even took a dollar out of that. But that that Peshwa uncle, who was sort of rogue king, wanted to wage a battle to usurp her treasury, right? And Ahilyabai knew that if that battle were to happen, she would very definitely lose that battle. So what she did strategically was the following: she defended herself by arming 500 battle-ready women soldiers. So what she did, remember I'm talking about 1725, when the whole North America was even a dilapidated state, as you perhaps kids know in history. So at that time, they had 500 women who were battle-ready. So she trained them. And what she said was, look, if you go to come for a battle, all these, it's only going to be 500 women facing you in this battle. If for whatever reason, you win the battle, then each one of us is going to fight to our death. So the only way you will take our kingdom is upon our dead bodies, as it were. So that is, we are going to die, each one of us. But then if each one of us is going to die in this battle, then the ignominy remains that you have taken this kingdom by killing 500 women, which is going to be a very bad reputation for you. On the other hand, if you win the battle, right, and so you can lose the battle, right? And so what I just described to you is, if you win the battle, then all the 500 women would be dead. But if you actually lose the battle, then the news will say that 500 women, all the women were able to defeat you. And even that is a good news. That news is not a good news. So either way, whether you win the battle or lose the battle, it is only going to bring a bad fame to you. And it is, so it's up to you how you fight it. So that was a strategy she used. And then the king understood that there's no way he was going to win this. Because really, if he were to lose the battle, that would have been a bad reputation for him. If he won the battle, that would also be a bad reputation, because then he would have killed all these 500 women. So he readily surrendered. He said, he came. He said, I'm very sorry that I even thought about this. But then Ahilyabai was very generous to host him. So she actually hosted him as a guest in her own fort for several days, and gave them all the atidhyam and sent them, right? All the so that is the very interesting story of how she handled a particular distress event with all the strategy and right thinking, right? So that also shows how forward India was in positioning women, in these strategic sort of events, climactic events. Okay, so I'm pretty much done. 30 seconds. So friends, so really the story here is that what are the three qualities, in my own humble way, I think, what are these three qualities that are necessary for success? As I said, success is not in our hands. All that we can do is cultivate a growth mindset. In fact, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, just delivered a talk at MIT recently, where he only talked about a growth mindset. What he really values at Microsoft is developing a growth mindset. Then I pondered, what is really growth mindset? Well, I knew from our own tradition and from all the lectures and of our gurus and so on, that what really matters is bhakti and shraddha. So these three examples: a little girl with an umbrella, the celestial being who became a godhead himself, Gantakarna, and and this arduous queen Ahalya Bai, who is perhaps single-handedly revived Hinduism and stood against the ravages of history. All these three characters, in each way, were known for their unique bhakti, faith in one's faith in one's prayer. That is how strong their bhakti was. They were either rooted in, so that devotion really carried them. And then, on the other hand, they had the determination, discipline, and dharma on their side, which is why that they gave them a growth mindset, eventually success. So I'm going to leave some questions for you. I was asked that I was supposed to give you some questions. So these questions actually help you go back and think about some of these issues. Who's the main character in each story? What is special about that person? How did that person adapt the growth mindset? And what qualities led to the eventual success of that person, and so on? And what qualities would you like to emulate from that person, right? So I definitely want you to watch those two Ahalya Bai videos when it comes to answering them. Again, this is more of really about building your inner person, really. So even if you write half page, I don't mind. It's really about building your inner person. Okay? So thank you so much, folks.
చాలా చాలా థ్యాంక్స్ అండి మధు గారు. ఇట్ వాజ్ ఎన్ ఎక్సలెంట్ సెషన్. వెరీ యూస్ఫుల్. అంటే ఆ ఇన్సైట్ కనెక్టింగ్ ద గ్రోత్ మైండ్ సెట్ టు వాట్ వీ హ్యావ్ ఆల్రెడీ అంటే టాట్ ఇన్ అవర్ మన పురాణ ఇతిహాసాల్లో చెప్పినదే. అది మన ఇప్పుడు లైఫ్ కి మనం ఎలా కనెక్ట్ చేసుకోవాలి అనేది మీరు చాలా బాగా అద్భుతంగా చెప్పారు.
Can they ask any questions if they have children?
తప్పకుండా.
పిల్లలు ఎవరికైనా ఏమైనా ప్రశ్నలు ఉంటే అడగచ్చమ్మా. Navneet or anybody, Tarani, Keshav?
Nothing, Andy.
ఓకే, నేను ఒక పాయింట్ చెప్తానమ్మా. సో నేను ఇక్కడ అకాడమిక్స్ లో ఉన్నాను, తెలుగు వాళ్ళే కదా అందరూ. సో అదే యూనివర్సిటీలో ఉన్నాను కాబట్టి ప్రొఫెసర్స్ వాళ్ళని కలుస్తుంటాం. సో మొన్న ఎవరో ఆక్స్ఫర్డ్ నుంచి వచ్చారు, మొన్న ఈ బిజినెస్ స్కూల్ నుంచి ఈ వీకే. సో ఆయనతో సో హీ హెడ్స్ అ బిగ్ గ్రూప్ ఇన్ ఆక్స్ఫర్డ్ యూనివర్సిటీ, స్టేట్ బిజినెస్ స్కూల్ దేర్. సో he was telling us really about the same things, really. So what is it they are looking for in children, right? As in, what is it they are looking for MBA students these days, right? So when they go and hire these students, recruit these students in the programs. So interestingly, what he said was that they're looking for humility, right? They are looking for somebody with a growth mindset, somebody who can learn, right? And somebody who's humble, and somebody who is avidly curious and wants to ask those questions and is never afraid of defeat. And so the biggest thing they want to avoid is hubris. So hubris really means arrogance, right? So in any of these three characters we saw, kids, the little girl with an umbrella, the Gantakarna, and Ahalya Bai, there was no hubris. They were completely grounded, and yet they achieved so much. And so in order to be successful, the hubris can actually set you back. And it was interesting because this professor from Oxford University in the business school was also saying that these are the qualities they look for when they recruit their MBA students, or when the future industry employs their MBA students, which is really about the Sanatana qualities which our culture has been pondering over thousands and thousands of years, right? So that is my little epilogue, and that's it.
True అండి, బాగుంది. సెషన్ అయిపోయింది ఏంటి, మనం కంక్లూడ్ చేసుకుందామండి నాగవేణి గారు?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you Madhu garu. Thanks.
Thank you, very kind of you. Thank you. మీకైనా ఫీడ్బ్యాక్ ఉంటే మీరు నాగవేణి గారికి చెప్పండి, నాగవేణి గారికి, and kindly we'll try to fine tune this going forward.
ఓకే, చాలా చాలా థ్యాంక్స్ అండి మధు గారు, చాలా బాగుంది.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
ఓకేనండి.
Thanks. Bye. So I'm going to disconnect then.
ఓకేనండి, థ్యాంక్స్ అండి, నమస్కారం.